So today I'm just going to make a quick little video here talking about some of these map rotation changes because I didn't include this little bit of information in my last one, which is actually pretty important. So they made this little short here, did Valorant, and yeah, let's just listen to see what they say.
Starting with patch 10.0 on January 7th, maps will rotate every act. We want to ensure that players and pros have time to prepare and adjust for map changes. We'll be providing updates about which maps are rotating on a per act basis, announcing the next act's map pool shortly after the current act starts. For those that want to learn more about what this change means for esports, head over to our esports channels.
Now, they still haven't done this deep dive on the topic, by the way, so I don't really fully know what's going on there. But yeah, the big news is that every act, the map pool is going to change. Now, this is a bit of a divergence from what happened before, where, to be fair, it felt like the map rotations were a bit more random. Obviously, when a new map came in, that would, come into the map pool and something would be rotated out generally, but it often felt like it was somewhat sporadic as to when a map rotation was actually going to happen. Now at least we do have kind of a set schedule, and as Riot said there, that they're going to provide the details of the map rotation kind of shortly after the last map rotation has just happened. But of course, with this decision, there was a little bit of backlash and people wondering whether this was a good idea. So this is a tweet from a coach of a tier 2 team. Feel free to convince me otherwise, but changing the map pool every act only makes Valorant even more unpredictable than it already is. The game already has so many random factors that are difficult to control, and now on top of that, the maps are constantly rotating. The combination of map rotation and agent changes leaves barely any room to breathe. This is clearly a change aimed at casual players, and no one playing at high level could realistically claim to benefit from the maps changing every, 30-40 days. Now, quick correction here, an act normally lasts about 2 months, so it's more like 60 days overall, but this obviously is going to be a common sentiment amongst pro players, and in fact, I think Boaster even had a tweet here. I didn't think swapping out 2 maps at the same time is fun, just prep some sexy stuff on Ascent and Sunset, and now they're gone. Even more prep to be done, right? So you can understand this kind of sentiment of, if you're a pro player or a pro coach, right, you're trying to prepare these maps, and then all of a sudden you've done all this prep for a map, and then it's gone, right? And your prep, doesn't matter until maybe when it comes back, and the meta might be very different, when it does come back. So you waste your time, basically, if you are a pro player or a coach. But I do want to push back somewhat here to what Boaster and this coach are saying, because and I will try and convince you otherwise here, that the map pool changing every act isn't necessarily a bad thing. The first thing that I want to highlight is that it makes Valorant more unpredictable than it already is, and that is somewhat true. But here's the crucial thing that I think sometimes a lot of pro players and coaches maybe don't fully recognize when they make some of these complaints, is that they work in the entertainment business. That is actually what their job is an entertainer, right? That's really why they get paid. It's for entertainment. And guess what? Things being more unpredictable generally leads to more entertaining outcomes. And that is the whole thing, right? And Leo Faria has even said this, specifically stated, in regards to lock-in, people were complaining that, hey, aren't some of these teams going to fly to Brazil, play one game, and then have to go home? And Leo Faria literally said, I think on a plat chat a while ago, like, yeah, they are. And I don't care. Because guess what? He doesn't need to care about what the players and coaches really think. He needs the viewing figures to be up. That's what their goal is with esports, right? The more people that watch it, the better it is for Riot, but also the better it is for these coaches and players, because guess what? They get paid more if more people watch, right? If 1 billion people started watching Pro Valorant around the world, they'd be getting paid a lot of money if that was the case, right? The more people that watch, the more they're going to get paid, right? So this is a change that Riot probably had in mind to, make it more unpredictable, thinking that that will be more exciting for your average viewer, which, to be honest, if we're being real, I know a lot of you who watch this channel will probably be pretty dedicated Valorant esports fans to an extent. Do you want to watch, the same teams play Ascent all the time, right? Probably not. Right? A changing map pool is going to keep things fresher, is going to, probably make you want to watch a little bit more if you are a more dedicated viewer. Now, for the more kind of casual viewers who tune in every so often or tune in for the Masters tournaments, it's probably not going to matter that much. But for the kind of more hardcore fans, this probably is actually a good change, at least in terms of viewing Valorant, because it's going to be a bit more fresh. And if you think about the skill expression side of this, right, this might be another argument that people might make, right, that essentially, it is more unpredictable, so it's less skillful, right? Less skill is required to potentially be the best. But really, all you're doing is changing the skills that you need, right? it's instead of being like you want to be the best at mastering something, right, becoming the absolute perfect that you can be, now instead that skill is less important because the maps are going to be rotating more, but instead you want to be good at adaptability, right, and creativity and coming up with weird stuff that your opponent isn't necessarily ready for. So really you haven't changed the skill level, in my opinion, you've just changed what skills are necessary to be good. And another skill that's probably going to become more important now with the maps constantly rotating is map vetoing. And if you watched a video that I made a little while ago, you'll know that my opinion on, pro teams' map vetoing skills isn't the highest. I don't think a lot of teams are that good at map vetoing, but that skill in theory now should become more important, right? With more maps rotating and changing, understanding like what maps you actually are good at and what maps you need to avoid from your opponent is probably going to become more important and could lead to more imbalanced map vetoes in general. And as I said, I'm not a massive fan of how, teams have map vetoed in the past. Like, for instance, when Fnatic in 2023 kept getting to play Lotus despite destroying everyone on Lotus, and yet still it seemed like barely anyone was banning Lotus against them, right? Didn't make any sense, but that's what teams were doing and still to this day kind of are doing when a team is very good on a map. So map vetoing is also going to become more important. And speaking about map vetoing though, I made a claim in my video about map vetoing that not having a permaban was going to be pretty good for you, right? But now with the maps kind of changing more often, as it were, I think that's going to be harder to do, right? It's going to be harder to not have a permaban in a sense because, all these maps are changing all the time. So just having one that like, hey, we don't have to practice that, that is going to save you quite a bit of time. So I would actually expect there to be more permabans. And if you were really game theorying this, if you were a team or if I was a coach for a team, I'd be looking at the map pool, the new map pool, patch 10.0 for when kind of the VCT starts and saying, okay, I want a permaban Lotus, right? If you're going to have a permaban, it probably should be one of Fracture or Lotus because they're new coming into the map pool, right? So they're probably the least likely to get rotated out the next time, which means you'll get more time of having that be your permaban. And I think Lotus is probably a better choice than Fracture because more teams, I think, will be willing to play Lotus and feel comfortable on Lotus than they will Fracture. So if I was a head coach of a team, I'd be saying like, hey, we're not going to practice Lotus for the first half of the season, right? Because we know we can be pretty confident that it's going to be in the map pool. A lot of teams are going to want to play it. So we're just going to permaban it. And then finally, to just finish here, I thought that we would try and predict how the map pool changes will go. Now, we don't know, we don't have that article going into a deep dive of how it's going to work, but I just thought I'd give you a quick prediction. So here's kind of the schedule of 2025. Now, these kind of things are always wrong, by the way. They never actually line up to where things are in a month or whatever. But I thought I would give a stab at this anyway. So what I would suspect to happen, right? We're getting our new map pool with Fracture and Lotus back in at the start of Jan. I would suspect that, for Kickoff and Masters Bangkok, we're going to get what we'll call map pool 1. Right, with Fracture and Lotus back in. Then I would suspect for kind of stage 1 and the playoffs here of stage 1 that we'll get a separate map pool, right? Stage 1 will probably last, 5-6 weeks, and the playoffs will be a week as well. So we're getting to like 7 weeks. That's around an act's time. So I would say let's call that map pool 2. Then following off we did kind of last season, if we go from Toronto to kind of the regular season of stage 2, I think we're probably likely to get kind of a third map pool there. And the reason that I think it will be probably the playoffs and champs is, if you remember, that's kind of what happened with this last season as well, right? That we kind of got Abyss being added in, kind of during this playoff stretch just before champs, and then for champs Abyss was there as well, right? And so that's kind of how I would see this map pool going. Maybe they would, not have it change at the playoffs and have it change for champs instead, but basically using these little gaps in between the tournaments and saying, that's kind of the prime time for these map pools, to change, and that's when they will change. So I would suspect we might get 4 kind of different map pools throughout the season, if I had to guess, and it will look something like that. Now, that could be completely wrong. I don't know. We'll have to see and await more details as they finally come out. But I just think that it's interesting, and it's an interesting debate as to whether this is a good or bad thing. So let me know what you think in the comments down below.